Hey Boyd Team fam, Justin here with your April update. I'm here with two main things and I'm going to try to keep them short. The first is that this past month we celebrated 9 years with Kelly working with our team. And so she has been here for a wild ride, and if you have her phone number or you've worked with her in the past, reach out to her, shoot her a text, congratulate her on 9 awesome years with our team. Thank you, Kelly, for all the things that you do for our team, for the agents in our office, and for the agents throughout the upstate that you work with as well. Thank you so much for just being awesome. Thing number 2 is something that I have gotten a lot of questions about over the course of the last couple of weeks, and that is the commission lawsuit that has been rampant throughout the media over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks. And so to bring everybody up to speed, back in October, there was a class action suit that was filed a few years ago, and so the ruling came down at the end of October that the major real estate organizations in the United States were going to have to pay $5.4 billion to some sellers and buyers that were in Missouri. And so as a part of that, there have been some settlements that have come through, and the big one was the National Association of Realtors, who settled back earlier this month. And as soon as that happened, there were some rule changes that have been proposed as a part of that settlement, and that's what the media has jumped on. Now, you guys know, in the media, if it bleeds, it leads. Fear is the name of the game. You want to get as many clicks as possible. You want to get as many people watching. You got to make them scared so they watch. And so that's what they've been doing the last 3 weeks. Today, I'm here to just set the record straight and make sure that you guys understand what is going on, and overall, that for us, it's not really that big of a deal. So thing number 1 that I want to clarify on, South Carolina, for once, has been way ahead of the game on this. Where this lawsuit was filed in Missouri, what I had heard was somewhere around 10% of the agents there were using what's called a buyer's agency contract. And so when buyers got to closing, sometimes that was the first time that they knew who was getting paid, how they were getting paid, how much they were getting paid. And in South Carolina, it has been required that that's all disclosed up front for 20 plus years. And so we've been requiring buyer's agency for 20 plus years. And so them requiring it nationally now is not a big deal. South Carolina was one of 18 states as of December that was actually following this as a requirement. And so way ahead of the game. Nothing to worry about there. Business as usual. Thing number 2 that is the major change is that MLS will no longer be allowed to advertise what the buyer agent commission is on the MLS. And so previously, if a listing popped up, a buyer contacted me and said, hey, I want to go take a look at this. We've had a conversation about, hey, we charge 3% on the buyer agent side. I'm able to now look in the MLS and see, hey, they're offering 3%. We're good to go. Or they're offering 4%. They're offering 2%. We get to have that conversation up front. What is going to happen now is that we don't know what that commission is going to be until we call that agent. We're probably going to do a couple of things with our team to make sure that it's publicized, but I can't do it through the MLS. And so that's the big change. We've got workarounds. We're going to be able to work through it. But there are some consequences that are going to happen because that is now the rule. And so walking through those briefly, it's not super important to you guys, but number 1 is that when I'm submitting an offer on your behalf, I'll have to submit a compensation agreement to the other agent to say, hey, we're asking for 3% from the seller as a part of compensation for the buyer agent, and then we'll negotiate that up front. So right now, the rules in our MLS are that you can't negotiate commissions at the same time as you're negotiating the contract. And so some of that we'll have to work through. We'll have to figure out some of those things. Consequence number 2, and this is where it gets into how it affects you guys, is that there will be some sellers that decide, I don't have to submit any compensation for the buyer. And I think this is a short-sighted view. And one of the things I point out to people right now is that for as long as I can remember, we could have offered $1 as compensation. It was not required to do anything more than $1, but you never saw somebody offer $1 because they knew that that was not in the seller's best interest in order to attract the most buyers. And so I don't think that's going to be a lot of sellers, but you will have some people that decide that they don't want to offer that compensation. And that brings to thing number 3 is that buyers, because we know that sellers may not offer that compensation, they will have to consider upfront that there's a possibility that they may have to pay for their agent out of pocket when they get to closing. Now, most of the time, again, I do not think that's going to be the case, but it is a conversation that you'll have to have up front. And thing number 4 is that currently VA buyers, the VA does not allow for those buyers to pay for compensation in their transaction. And so that rule is either going to have to change nationally, or it'll have to be something that we find a workaround for in the meantime. So those are the 4 main things that I think are consequences of that. Overall, my opinion is that this is a step backwards because it's less transparent than it was before, and it has the potential to allow for VA buyers or buyers that don't have the money to pay for their agent to feel pressured into either entering the transaction without representation or could put them in a bad financial position where they can't afford certain houses because of the way that the seller is approaching the situation. And so I do think that it's not a good thing the way that they've done it so far, but the rulings haven't passed yet. All agreements haven't been made. And as an industry, the real estate industry has been very creative and flexible in the way that we adapt to these changes. And so I have no fear that this is still going to be a great market. We still have a lot of buyers moving into the area. We still have a lot of people that need to sell. And overall, again, for South Carolina, this is not going to change things that much. And so as you Google and you see all the things out there on the news about the 6% commission is dead and your housing values are going to plummet because of new commission rule, none of that is true. As you read through the articles, these people have no idea what they're talking about when they're writing these stories. And so I had read one the other day that didn't even have the dates right for when the rulings came down. The easiest of information that you could find on the internet was incorrect. And so if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out. But I did want to clarify that. If you made it to the end of this video, congratulations. You guys are probably the ones that are going to ask me questions later because you're actually interested in this. But I hope you guys have a great April, start to spring. It was 80 degrees 2 days ago. It's like 50 degrees now. Typical South Carolina spring for you right there. But I hope you guys have a great rest of April and look forward to talking to you in May. Bye-bye.